It's been oppressively hot for October in Havenwood, Ohio. Like sticky, thick summer in July hot. You walk outside and it's like stepping into a damp towel. Everyone's been saying it's unseasonable, but it's gone beyond that. It's just wrong. The air hangs heavy, and even the leaves on the trees seem droopy and exhausted, like they can't believe they're still being asked to photosynthesize in this swampy air. I moved back to Havenwood about 6 months ago, after 10 years in Chicago. Needed a change of pace, big city burnout, the usual story. Havenwood is, well, it's Havenwood. Population hovers around 3,000, one stoplight, everyone knows everyone else's business, it's quiet. Too quiet sometimes, if I'm being honest, but that's what I thought I wanted. For the first few months, it was exactly what I expected. Friendly nods at the grocery store, Friday night football games at the high school, the comforting predictability of small town life. Then the heat wave started about a week ago, and things started feeling off. It's not just the heat, though that's bad enough. It's this sound, a low hum, almost like a drone, but deeper, more resonant. At first, I thought it was just the old AC unit in my house acting up, but I turned it off, and the hum was still there. I went outside, walked around the block, and it followed me. It's everywhere. It's not loud, not exactly. More like a pressure in your ears, a vibration you feel in your chest more than hear with your ears. Most people probably wouldn't even notice it, or if they did, they'd write it off as tinnitus or something. But I notice it, constantly. It's been getting worse each day. Yesterday, it was just a background thrum, easy enough to ignore if I was busy. Today, it's like the air itself is buzzing. It's making my teeth ache, and I swear I can feel it in my bones. It's hard to concentrate, hard to sleep. I asked Mrs. Henderson at the post office if she'd noticed anything unusual lately. She just smiled her usual sweet, slightly vacant smile and said, "Just this heat, dear, dreadful, isn't it?" Then she handed me my mail, all bills and junk flyers, like everything was perfectly normal. But it's not normal. The heat isn't normal. This sound isn't normal. And the way everyone is acting like everything is normal, that's the most unsettling thing of all. It's like they're not hearing it, or they are. And they just don't care, or can't care. Tonight, it's worse than ever. I'm sitting on my porch, trying to get some fresh air, but the air itself feels thick and buzzing. The hum is almost a physical presence now, pressing down on me. I can hear it even over the crickets, which are usually deafening this time of night. But even the crickets sound muted, like they're struggling to chirp in this heavy air. And now, listening closely, I think it's not just a hum anymore. There's something else layered underneath it. A rhythm. A slow, deep pulse. Like a heartbeat. No, that's ridiculous. It's just the heat getting to me. It has to be. But as I sit here in the dark, listening to the oppressive silence punctuated by this low, pulsing drone, a cold knot of dread is tightening in my stomach. Something is wrong in Havenwood. Something is deeply, fundamentally wrong. And I have a feeling, a terrible, sinking feeling, that whatever it is, it's getting closer. Sleep was impossible last night. The hum vibrated through my mattress, through my skull. Every time I drifted off, I jolt awake, heart pounding. Convinced the sound had changed, deepened, become something else. I kept expecting to see flashing lights outside, some kind of emergency vehicles, anything to explain the oppressive atmosphere. But nothing, just the relentless heat and the hum. Dawn finally broke, pale and weak through the humid haze. The air outside was no better than inside. The hum was still there, maybe even louder. I made coffee, strong and black, hoping to shock my system awake. As I drank it, standing at the kitchen window, I noticed something else that was off. The birds were gone. Usually, my backyard is full of birdsong in the morning. Robins, cardinals, sparrows, the whole chorus. This morning, nothing. Just silence, except for the hum. It wasn't just my yard. Looking down the street, I didn't see or hear a single bird anywhere. No squirrels chattering, no dogs barking. Even the neighbor's rooster, usually crowing his head off by now, was silent. It was like all the life had just vanished. Or been silenced. That's when real panic started to set in. The heat, the hum, the unnatural quiet, it was all connected. I knew it. This wasn't just a weird weather pattern. This was something else. I decided I needed to talk to someone who might actually listen. Old Man Hemlock. He lives at the end of my street. The really dilapidated house with the overgrown yard. He's the town eccentric, the one everyone whispers about, the crazy old guy who keeps to himself. But he's also lived in Havenwood longer than anyone. Maybe even Joran from the Lake story. If anyone would notice something was wrong, it would be him. And maybe, just maybe, he'd have some answers. I walked down to his place. The heat was already brutal, even this early. The hum was a constant pressure now, making my head swim. As I got closer to Hemlock's house, the air felt even heavier, thicker. The silence was absolute. Even the cicadas, usually buzzing like power lines in this heat, were quiet. His house looked even more run down up close. Paint peeling, porch sagging, windows dark and dusty. I hesitated at the front door, feeling a prickle of unease. This place, it felt wrong too. Like the air itself was stagnant, dead. I knocked, the sound echoing too loudly in the unnatural quiet. Silence. I knocked again, louder. Still nothing. I tried the door handle and locked. Mr. Hemlock. I called out, pushing the door open a crack. The inside was dark, smelled of dust and something elsey, something musty, almost organic, like damp earth and decay. Mr. Hemlock, you there? I stepped inside. The living room was cluttered, piled high with newspapers, books, junk. Dust motes danced in the slivers of sunlight that managed to penetrate the grime-coated windows. It was stiflingly hot and still inside, the hum even more oppressive in the enclosed space. Hello, I called again, louder this time. Silence, except for the hum, and something else. A faint scratching sound, coming from deeper inside the house. My heart started to pound. Mr. Hemlock. I called, my voice wavering slightly. I took a step further into the room, my eyes adjusting to the gloom. That's when I saw it. Or rather, them. On the far wall in the shadows were things, shapes. They were hunched over, low to the ground, almost like animals. But not animals I recognized. Too elongated, too pale, their limbs too jointed wrong. And they were moving, shifting slowly, rhythmically, in time with the pulsing hum. Scratching at the wall, a low, wet scraping sound. They didn't react to my voice, didn't even seem to notice me. They just kept scratching, their pale, elongated forms swaying in the dim light. Their movements disturbingly synchronized with the hum that vibrated through the house, through me. I stood frozen, staring, my breath caught in my throat. What were these things? And where was Miss Hemlock? Then one of the shapes turned its head, slowly, deliberately, and I saw its face, or what passed for a face. No eyes, no nose, just a smooth, pale expanse of skin, stretched out over bone. And a mouth. A wide, gaping maw filled with rows and rows of needle, sharp teeth, too many teeth, impossibly many teeth, all clicking softly together in the silence. It turned its eyeless face towards me, and a low, wet gurgle escaped from that impossible mouth. And in that gurgle, beneath the hum, beneath the scratching, I heard it, a whisper. Faint, but clear. Flozer. I didn't wait to hear anything else. I didn't think. I just turned and ran. I stumbled back through the cluttered living room, slammed back out the front door, and didn't stop running until I was back on my own porch, gasping for breath, my heart hammering against my ribs. The heat was still oppressive. The hum was still there, louder now, more insistent. But now, layered beneath it, I could hear something else. Something new. A faint, wet scratching sound, carried on the heavy, buzzing air. Getting closer. I bolted the door, locked it, deadbolted it, and then stood there, panting, staring at the wood as if it were going to splinter, and those things would come scratching through. Ridiculous, I know. But my mind was racing, adrenaline pumping. What the hell had I just seen? Creatures, monsters. Hallucinations from the heat and that damn hum. My rational brain was screaming for a logical explanation, but there was none. Those weren't animals. And that whisper, that voice, it was real. I know it was real. I backed away from the door slowly, keeping my eyes fixed on it. The scratching sound, it was fainter now, almost gone. But the hum was louder, pressing in on me, making my head throb. And now, I could swear, there was another sound layered in with the hum and the scratching. A wet, dragging sound. Like something heavy was being pulled across the ground. I had to get out of the house. Being trapped inside, waiting for whatever that was to come for me, was unbearable. But where could I go? The town, was the town even safe anymore? If those things were in Hemlock's house, who knew where else they might be? Then I remembered something Joran had said in the lake story you asked me to write. You leave, you forget, you let them handle it. Leave. Forget. Maybe that was the answer. Maybe Havenwood was lost. Maybe the best thing I could do was just get the hell out of here and never look back. But leave to where? And what about everyone else in Havenwood? Were they all just going to what? Become hosts for those things? Or worse, the thought of Mrs. Henderson, with her sweet, vacant smile, being consumed by one of those pale, scratching creatures, it made my stomach churn. No, I couldn't just leave, not yet. Not without trying to understand what was happening, to warn someone, anyone. I grabbed my phone, hands shaking so badly I almost dropped it. Who to call? 9-Heaven. What was I going to tell them? Yeah, hi. There are monsters in my neighbor's house, and the air is humming, and everyone is acting weird. Please send help. They'd lock me up faster than those things could do whatever they did. The police station. Sheriff Brody. He's Sheriff Brody. Small town cop. Probably hasn't seen real action since he broke up a high school kegger, 98. But he's decent. And he knows everyone in town. Maybe he noticed something was off too. I scrolled through my contacts, found his number, and hit call. It rang and rang and rang. Voicemail. Hey, you've reached Sheriff Brody. Leave a message. I hung up. Tried again. Voicemail again. Damn it. Okay, new plan. I needed to go to the police station in person. Maybe seeing me face to face would make him take me seriously. Or at least, seriously enough to listen. I grabbed my keys, hesitated for a second, then grabbed a kitchen knife too. Stupid, probably. What was a knife going to do against that? But it was better than nothing. It felt like something. Anyway, I opened the front door slowly, cautiously peering out. The street was deserted. The heat shimmered off the asphalt. The hum was a solid wall of sound now, vibrating in my teeth, making my vision blur slightly. And yes, the dragging sound. Closer now. Definitely closer. I stepped out onto the porch, knife clutched tight in my hand. Which way to go? Police station was downtown, towards the center of Havenwood. Hemlock's house was on the edge of town, the opposite direction. If those things were coming from his place at downtown. Safer bet. Probably. More people, even if they were acting weird. Safety in numbers, right? Even if those numbers were all humming along to the same creepy tune. I started walking, fast, almost jogging. The heat was suffocating, the hum almost deafening. The dragging sound was definitely following me now, keeping pace just out of sight. I didn't dare look back. As I walked, I started to notice more things. Things I'd been too panicked to register before. The silence wasn't just birds and animals. It was everything. No cars driving by, no lawnmowers, no kids yelling, no music from open windows. Havenwood was always quiet during the day, but this was tomb-like. And the people there were a few people out, walking, moving slowly, almost trance-like. They didn't look at me, didn't acknowledge me at all. Just kept walking, their faces blank, their eyes unfocused. Like they were sleepwalking. Or something else. One man, walking towards me, stumbled slightly, and I saw his hand. His skin, it was pale, almost translucent, and glistening. Wet-looking, like the skin of those things in Hemlock's house. My breath hitched. Oh God, it wasn't just Hemlock's house. It was in the treading, it was in the town. The man stumbled again, closer now. And I heard it, faint but unmistakable, coming from him. A wet, scratching sound, beneath the hum. He looked up then, finally, his blank eyes focusing on me, and he smiled. A slow, wide, unsettling smile that didn't reach his dead eyes. And he opened his mouth to speak. And in that moment, I saw it. Inside his mouth, behind his teeth, something pale and elongated moved, shifted, scratched. I didn't wait to hear what he was going to say. I didn't wait to see what was in his mouth. I just turned and ran again. Back the way I came, away from downtown, away from them. Running blindly, desperately, back towards my house. Back towards nowhere safe. The hum was roaring in my ears now, the dragging sound close behind, and the scratching was everywhere. It was in the air, in the ground, in my own head. Havenwood wasn't just wrong, Havenwood was gone, and whatever had taken its place of it was hungry, and it was coming for me. My house. I had to get back to my house. Maybe I could barricade myself in, maybe there was something there I could use to fight back, or at least delay them. Buy myself some time. Time for what? I didn't know. Escape. Survival. Just time. I burst back onto my porch, slammed the door behind me, fumbled with the locks, my hands slick with sweat, and shaking so violently I could barely get the key in the deadbolt. Finally, it clocked. For now. I stumbled into the living room, heart hammering, lungs burning. The hum in the house was almost unbearable now. A physical pressure that felt like it was trying to crush me from the inside out. The scratching sound was fainter here, but still present, a constant, unnerving undertone to the oppressive drone. I scanned the room, desperate for anything that could help. Kitchen knife was useless. Baseball bat in the corner, maybe. Against what? Against them. Those pale, shifting things with their eyeless faces and impossible mouths. It felt inadequate. Then I saw it. In the corner, behind a stack of unpacked boxes from my move, was the old camping backpack I hadn't gotten around to putting away yet. Inside I remembered emergency supplies. First aid kit, water bottles, some energy bars, and yes, my old camping hatchet. Not a weapon, exactly, but better than a kitchen knife. Definitely better than nothing. I ripped the backpack open, grabbed the hatchet, hefted it in my hand. The weight was strangely comforting, solid and real in this dissolving reality. I slung the backpack over my shoulder, hatchet in hand, and moved to the back of the house. Back door. Maybe I could get out the back way, into the woods behind my property. If I could get into the woods, maybe I could lose them. Maybe I could hide. For a while, anyway. I crept to the back door, peered through the peephole. Backyard was empty. For now, the heat was still shimmering, the hum still vibrating, but no sign of them. Yet, I unlocked the back door, opened it slowly, silently, and slipped out into the yard. The air here felt cleaner, somehow. Or maybe it was just wishful thinking. The hum was still there, but maybe a little less intense. Or maybe I was just getting used to it. Desensitized to the creeping horror, I moved quickly across the yard, towards the tree line. The woods behind my house were dense, overgrown, mostly untouched. Havenwood wasn't exactly a hiking destination. If I could get deep enough in, maybe, just maybe, I could find some kind of safety. Some kind of escape. I reached the edge of the woods, plunged into the shadows of the trees. The air here was cooler, darker, the sunlight filtered and diffused by the thick canopy overhead. The hum was still there, but muffled now, less oppressive. The scratching sound, I couldn't hear it anymore. Or maybe the rustling leaves and snapping twigs under my feet were masking it. I started to run, deeper into the woods, pushing through branches, scrambling over fallen logs, hatchet clutched tight in my hand. I didn't know where I was going, didn't have a plan beyond just running, escaping, surviving. The woods grew darker, denser. The trees were old, gnarled, their branches twisted into grotesque shapes against the pale sky. The silence here was different from the silence in town. This was a natural silence, the quiet of the deep woods, broken only by the rustling leaves and my own ragged breathing. For a moment, just a fleeting moment, I felt a flicker of hope. Maybe I could actually get away. Maybe I could actually survive this. Then I heard it again, faint but unmistakable, the scratching, closer now. Definitely closer, and the dragging sound too, keeping pace, relentless. They were still following me. They were still coming. I ran faster, pushing myself harder, ignoring the burning in my lungs, the stitch in my side. Deeper into the woods, further and further away from Havenwood, from the hum, from the scratching, from them. But it was no use. They were faster than me, stronger than me, and they were everywhere. The hum was everywhere, the scratching was everywhere, the oppressive, buzzing air was everywhere. There was no escape, not in Havenwood, maybe not anywhere. I stumbled, tripped over a root, went sprawling, hatchet flying from my hand, skittering away into the undergrowth. I lay there for a moment, winded, bruised, defeated. The hum roared in my ears, the scratching was close, so close. I could feel it now, vibrating in the ground beneath me, in the air above me, in my own skin. I looked up and saw them. They were there, at the edge of the trees, just inside the woods, blocking my path. 3 of them, maybe more, lurking in the shadows. Pale elongated shapes, shifting, swaying, their eyeless faces turned towards me. Their impossible mouths opening, clicking, whispering. Closer, closer, closer. The whispers were all around me now, not just from them, but from the trees, from the ground, from the air itself. The hum had become a voice, a chorus of voices, all whispering the same word, the same invitation, the same demand. Closer. I closed my eyes, bracing myself for whatever was going to happen. For the pain, for the consumption, for the becoming. Because that's what it felt like now. Not just being attacked, but being absorbed. Being drawn in, becoming part of it, whatever it was. But the pain didn't come. The attack didn't come. Instead, there was just silence. Not the oppressive silence of Havenwood, but a different kind of silence, awaiting silence. I opened my eyes, slowly, cautiously. They were still there, the pale shapes, still swaying, still whispering. But they weren't moving closer. They were just watching, waiting, and I understood. And then, I wasn't hunting me. Not exactly. It didn't need to. It was already inside me. Inside Havenwood. Inside everything. The hum, the scratching, the oppressive air of it wasn't just around me. It was me. It was us. Havenwood had become part of it. And now it was just waiting for the rest of the world to catch up. The whispers grew louder, not threatening, not aggressive, just insistent. And in the whispers, beneath the hum, beneath the scratching, I heard something else. Something new. Something that wasn't a demand, but an invitation. A promise. Remember. And as I sat there in the woods, surrounded by the silent, watching shapes, listening to the whispering hum, I knew. I understood. It wasn't about forgetting. It was about remembering. Remembering what we had forgotten. Remembering what we had tried to contain. Remembering it. And in that remembering, in that acceptance, the fear began to fade, replaced by something else. Something like understanding, like belonging, like becoming. The hum pulsed, the whispers intensified, and the pale shapes swayed closer. And this time, I didn't run. I didn't fight. I just waited, and listened, and remembered. And in the silence that followed, in the heavy, buzzing air, in the scratching whispers all around me, I knew that Havenwood was gone. And something elsey, something new was being born. And that I was part of it now. And there was no escape, and no going back. Only becoming.